I was going to fight Ilya in January.
I know there was a little bit of criticism about Paddy Pimblett getting this fight.
I mean, I felt just as much hate for me as I did for him. But if you're an Armin fan, you obviously, feel slighted, and I understand that. But this is such a crazy game, and timing is everything. I beat Dustin Poirier, and then he ended up fighting for a belt. If you sign up for this game, you have to understand that there's so many variables that you do not control, and ultimately you just have to be ready for each one of these nights when they show.
One fighter just dropped the most insane claim in MMA history, boldly stating he could tap out Paddy Pimblett, and the entire combat sports world is losing their minds. This isn't just typical pre-fight trash talk we're used to hearing. This is a fighter making a declaration that goes against everything we know about submission artists and grappling specialists. When someone has the audacity to claim they can submit a guy who's built his entire reputation on finishing people on the ground, you know we're dealing with either supreme confidence or complete delusion. And here's the kicker. This statement didn't come from some random nobody looking for attention. This came from Justin Gaethje, a man who spent years being labeled as just a violent striker, someone who supposedly crumbles the moment fights hit the mat. But something fundamental has changed, and what I'm about to break down will completely shift how you see this upcoming battle.
Grappler, but since the Charles Oliveira fight, I really trained a lot of jiu-jitsu, a lot of grappling. And I've actually been enjoying it a lot more than I ever have. And so, I'm not looking to grapple, but I have no issue, with the grappling department. And my ability to keep people from taking me down is second to none. So he's going to have to, compromise me with his punches and kicks and knees. And then, if that happens, then he'll have a better chance.
Now here's where this story gets absolutely wild, because Gaethje's confidence isn't coming from thin air. This transformation didn't happen overnight, and it definitely didn't come easy. For years, everyone knew exactly how to beat Justin Gaethje. Take him down, control him on the ground, and watch him wilt under pressure. He was that dangerous knockout artist who turned into a sitting duck the second his back hit the canvas. But after getting systematically destroyed by elite grapplers like Charles Oliveira and Khabib Nurmagomedov, something clicked in his mind. Those losses weren't just defeats. They were wake-up calls that forced him to completely reconstruct his entire fighting identity. The Oliveira fight was particularly brutal because everyone watched Justin defend takedowns for what felt like forever, showing glimpses of improved defensive grappling before eventually succumbing to a submission. But here's what people missed. He lasted way longer on the ground than anyone expected. Then came Khabib, and that was a different level of domination entirely. Khabib didn't just beat him, he made him look like he didn't belong in the same octagon. But instead of making excuses or pointing fingers, Gaethje did something remarkable. He disappeared into training camps and completely overhauled his ground game. We're talking about a guy who used to avoid grappling exchanges at all costs, now actively seeking out the best jiu-jitsu and wrestling coaches money can buy. Sources close to his camp say he's been training like a man possessed, putting in double sessions focused entirely on submission defense and ground positioning. So when he says he can tap Paddy Pimblett, he's not just talking tough, he's backing it up with years of dedicated improvement that nobody saw coming.
To be honest, because I think I'm going to knock him out. So people won't expect that. People think I'm just going to try and grapple and take him down when I'm not. I'm going to come out and I'm going to put it on.
Expecting an early knockout, a late knockout.
Meanwhile, Paddy Pimblett is walking into this interim lightweight championship fight carrying 0 UFC losses and a mountain of expectations that would crush most fighters. But here's where things get complicated, because not everyone is buying into the Paddy hype train. Sure, he's undefeated in the UFC, but take a closer look at his opponents, and you'll start to understand why hardcore fans remain skeptical. Most of the guys he's beaten were either coming off losses, dealing with personal issues, or clearly past their prime when they stepped into the octagon with him. It's like he's been getting fed a steady diet of opponents designed to make him look good rather than truly test his championship potential. But Paddy doesn't see it that way at all. In his mind, he's exactly where he belongs, fighting for gold and ready to prove all the doubters wrong in the most spectacular fashion possible. Instead of playing it safe and relying on his grappling advantages, Paddy is talking about finishing Gaethje within 3 rounds through pure aggression and violence. He wants to meet fire with fire, standing toe-to-toe with one of the most dangerous strikers in the division and proving he can beat elite competition at their own game. This isn't the game plan most coaches would recommend against someone like Gaethje, but Paddy seems convinced that shocking the world with an explosive finish is exactly how he announces himself as a legitimate championship contender.
Paddy's not bad. He's very beatable, and Gaethje's very beatable as well. But when it goes into the passion and how upsetting Justin Gaethje has always been about not getting that real title shot, and they just keep dangling it right there again, Paddy's in for a new treat, right? Paddy's the one that's never fought for a belt. He's going in there. He's going to be trying to, get that stuff. He's going to feel a little bit more fresher. He's going to have that little bit of excitedness, in my opinion.
But here's where the psychology of this fight gets absolutely fascinating, because Tony Ferguson, one of the few fighters who's actually shared the octagon with both men, dropped some serious knowledge about what could determine the outcome. Ferguson didn't necessarily think Paddy was the better fighter skill for skill, but he identified something that could be Gaethje's Achilles heel in this particular moment. We're talking about emotional baggage that runs deeper than most people realize. Gaethje has already suffered through 2 heartbreaking title fight losses, watching championship gold slip through his fingers when he was so close he could taste it. Now he's back in another title fight situation, and Ferguson believes that psychological weight could be crushing. It's like reopening old wounds every time someone mentions championship opportunities or title shots. Meanwhile, Paddy is approaching this with the excitement of a kid on Christmas morning. He has 0 emotional damage from previous title fight failures because he's never been in this position before. Everything is new, everything is exciting, and there's no heavy history weighing down his performance. Ferguson's point was brilliant in its simplicity. Sometimes the fighter who wants it less actually performs better because they're not paralyzed by the fear of failing again. While Gaethje might be overthinking every moment and every exchange, worried about another devastating loss, Paddy could be flowing freely and taking risks that lead to spectacular finishes.
Gaethje fighting for the interim title. Whoever wins that fight will move on to fight Ilya. And I don't think that there will be a title defense for the interim title. If I was to guess, if I was to bet, there will be no title defense of the interim title. I think that the next fight for whoever wins between Paddy and Justin, I think their next fight will be Ilya Topuria. So I do not think they will defend the interim title. So good movement and clarity at 155 pounds. I feel for Arman Tsarukyan, but this fight's going to be incredible.
Then you have Charles Oliveira jumping into the conversation with a completely different perspective that honestly makes a lot of sense when you break it down. Oliveira thinks Paddy might have accidentally stumbled into the perfect timing for his title shot, not because he's necessarily ready, but because the lightweight division's landscape worked out in his favor. Think about it this way: the division is absolutely loaded with killers like Arman Tsarukyan and Islam Makhachev, guys who are in their absolute prime and would probably demolish Paddy in a straight-up skills contest. But Gaethje, while still incredibly dangerous, represents a different kind of challenge. He's further along in his career, more predictable in his fighting patterns, and significantly less dynamic than these younger wolves who are hunting for championship gold. Oliveira sees this as Paddy's best possible matchup among elite contenders, almost like the stars aligned to give him his easiest path to a title. But even with this tactical advantage, Oliveira couldn't shake his doubts about Paddy's ability to handle championship-level adversity. He questioned whether Paddy has the wrestling to keep Gaethje down if the fight hits the mat, and more importantly, whether he can survive the absolute chaos of a 5-round war against someone who thrives in violent exchanges. In Oliveira's mind, this fight heavily favors Gaethje because championship fights reveal who fighters really are when everything is on the line.
That I'm glad it's over and I never want to do it again. I'm like, the fans don't ever ask for a rematch or anything like that, because that would have never. I'm like, I'm glad. He's unique, man, and he's one of my favorite guys to watch. So like, but if you want to beat Justin Gaethje, you have to. So he's a forward fighter and a pressure fighter that he will stand in the pocket, and he's gonna throw everything he got in that pocket. If you don't meet him, you'll get chewed up. So Paddy, the way to beat a guy who like does this very violent, aggressive pressure fighter, you have to meet him. You have to throw when he throws. So you got to be brave, and you got to go. You have to go when he goes in between his shots. If you do that, you got a fair shot. If you don't do that, if you're not brave and courageous and throw when he throws in between his shots, it's going to be a really long night. It's going to be a hard night.
Arman Tsarukyan brought an absolutely fascinating angle to this debate, and his perspective carries serious weight because he's the man who handed Justin Gaethje his very first UFC loss. For Alvarez, this fight has nothing to do with who's more skilled on paper and everything to do with preparation and understanding what you're walking into. He made a crucial point that most people overlook. Gaethje's intensity and pressure are almost impossible to replicate in training. You can't just bring in sparring partners and expect them to match the relentless pace and violent exchanges that Gaethje brings to every single fight. Alvarez remembers exactly what it felt like to stand across from Gaethje: the constant pressure, the non-stop collisions, the feeling that you're trapped in a phone booth with a madman throwing bombs. He believes Paddy needs to completely overhaul his training camp and surround himself with partners who can push him to that level of intensity. Because if he shows up unprepared for that pace, it's going to be a very short night. The problem is, if Paddy trains the way he usually does with familiar partners who can't match elite-level intensity, the first time he feels Gaethje's pressure will be when it's too late to adjust. Alvarez has seen too many fighters try to adapt to unique styles mid-fight, and it almost never ends well. He's not questioning Paddy's heart or toughness, but he's warning that trying to figure out Gaethje's puzzle while getting punched in the face is a recipe for disaster.
Basically saying Paddy's more popular, you're getting it over Arman.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, right? And that's, I mean, God, I hate like how I kind of get into this too much, but I mean, that's really like, that's the definition of, you know, a monopoly where a single promoter owns the title and the rankings. And it's not a good thing for the sport, in my opinion. And I have to question what it's going to do for the longevity of the sport. You know, I don't think in the short term it's really going to make a big difference, right? Like, you know, it's going to sell the next fight, right? It's going to sell the next pay-per-view. But trends tend to come and go, right? Fads tend to come and go. At some point, like, you know, to have staying power and lasting power, I think it requires, you know, a meritocracy-based system. It's going to require, you know, some, you know, if you want to bring in guys like Arman Tsarukyan or Movsar Evloev, not always mess up how I say his name. You want to bring in these Olympic wrestling level guys. I mean, they don't want to have to go out there and put on some ridiculous show to become a champion. They don't want to have to go on Instagram and start a podcast and make you know, whatever kind of skits on social media and this silly kind of stuff. Like, they just want to be a world champion because they want to be the best athlete. And that's what makes me wonder how the staying power is going to be, right? When you're dealing with guys that are, you know, legitimate athletes that want to be legitimate athletes, and they're getting passed up by guys that are entertaining.
Now here's where things get really controversial. because Matt Brown stepped into this conversation with some harsh truths about what UFC 304 really represents for the sport. Brown is absolutely disgusted by Paddy's rapid rise to a title shot, calling it a blatant marketing move that prioritizes entertainment value over legitimate sporting merit. In his mind, this fight represents everything wrong with modern MMA, where social media followers and ticket sales matter more than actually beating elite competition. Brown pointed to Arman Tsarukyan as the perfect example of how broken the system has become. Here's a guy who systematically worked his way up the rankings, defeated multiple top contenders, and clearly demonstrated he belongs among the division's elite. But instead of getting his deserved title shot, he's sitting on the sidelines watching a fighter who hasn't beaten anyone in the top 5 jump ahead of him in line. Brown's frustration goes beyond just this one fight. He sees it as part of a disturbing trend where championship opportunities are handed out based on marketability rather than performance. He sarcastically joked that maybe title shots are given out based on Instagram followers now, but underneath that humor is genuine concern about the sport's integrity. When fighters realize they can get bigger opportunities by building social media brands instead of improving their skills, what happens to the competitive spirit that makes MMA special? Brown worries we're watching the sport transform into entertainment first, legitimate competition second.
He's the odd man out, you know. He had an opportunity, and you guys know how that played out, and he's gonna have to work his way back. I don't give a shit what the number says. He's gonna have to work his way back. There's just too much goes into this for those type of things to happen. You know, we had a little. We were talking back in my room tonight, and we were talking about you know, all the crazy shit that's happened over the last 20-something years. But you can't do that. You can't get the opportunity, and then it can't end that way. So he's got to work his way back.
So the message is take the next fight you offer him, obviously?
No, I mean, you know, he obviously, he knows what's going on. I don't give a shit what everybody else says. You know, he knows what's going on, and he's got to work his way back to that.
Islam Makhachev, the current undisputed lightweight champion, completely echoed Brown's frustrations and added his own champion's perspective to the controversy. From his viewpoint, Arman Tsarukyan has done everything possible to earn a title shot, including stepping up as an alternate, making weight while injured, and completely dominating dangerous opponents like Dan Hooker. Yet somehow, Tsarukyan is stuck waiting while 2 fighters ranked below him compete for what should be his opportunity. Makhachev's confusion is genuine and understandable. He can't comprehend the logic behind passing over the most deserving contender for a fight that makes more business sense. But here's where it gets really interesting. Islam revealed that this decision creates a domino effect that could keep Tsarukyan out of title contention for over a year. He explained that whoever wins between Paddy and Gaethje might face Ilia Topuria next, meaning Arman could be looking at another lengthy period of inactivity, while less deserving fighters get their shots. Islam's frustration boiled over when he said the promotion is making more and more fights that simply don't make sense from a competitive standpoint. Meanwhile, Dana White remained completely unapologetic about the decision, basically telling critics that Tsarukyan had his chance and blew it, so now he needs to earn another opportunity. The tension between sporting merit and business interests has never been more obvious, and it's creating fractures in how people view championship legitimacy.
Hard, you know, it's hard because it's your goal. Why, like, guy like a Paddy, he beat just one rank, number 12, and like they made the fake ranking and put him on the 5, and it's a business, you know. It's not just a sport. They can do whatever they want to do, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna be a champion. It's just time, you know, the difference of the time. It's hard because I deserve to fight for the time.
But here's where this drama takes an absolutely wild turn that nobody saw coming. Arman Tsarukyan, clearly frustrated by being passed over for the title shot, made an audacious move that perfectly captures his feelings about this whole situation. He actually reached out to Justin Gaethje's camp and volunteered to help prepare him for the fight against Paddy Pimblett. Now, this wasn't coming from any love for Gaethje or desire to see him succeed. This was pure animosity toward Paddy and a willingness to help anyone who might beat him. Think about how unprecedented this is. A top contender offering to help train his potential future opponent just to ensure someone he dislikes gets defeated. Gaethje, being the smart veteran he is, immediately saw through the offer and recognized it for what it really was, not friendship but strategic warfare. While he appreciated the gesture, Justin ultimately declined because he didn't want to bring a potential future opponent into his training camp where they could study his techniques and tendencies. Plus, Gaethje has complete faith in his existing team and saw no reason to disrupt his carefully planned preparation with last-minute changes. But the fact that Tsarukyan even made the offer tells you everything about how personal this situation has become and how much resentment exists toward Paddy's rapid ascension to title contention.
So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind him adding something to the story so that people want to watch. Either way, people are going to want to watch. I'm the most consistent, most exciting guy, and this guy is on a freaking tear right now. So when that cage door locks, we're going to try to beat the shit out of each other, and I can guarantee every person in the arena will turn into an animal, and that's my goal every time.
Now let's talk about what's really at stake for Justin Gaethje, because winning this interim title opens up some absolutely massive possibilities that extend far beyond just this one fight. The UFC has already indicated that the winner will likely face featherweight champion Ilia Topuria in a unification bout, but here's where things get interesting. Topuria has been making noise about potentially moving up to welterweight, and if that happens, it could completely reshape the entire lightweight division landscape. Gaethje isn't worried about any of these scenarios because each one leads to something he desperately wants. If Topuria stays and they fight for unification, that's the undisputed championship he's been chasing for years. But if Topuria moves up and vacates the lightweight title, Gaethje automatically becomes the undisputed champion without having to fight again. That scenario opens up some absolutely mouth-watering possibilities, including potential rematches with Max Holloway or Charles Oliveira for massive pay-per-view events. Gaethje has been dreaming about this exact situation ever since his impressive victory over Rafael Fiziev, envisioning himself holding both the undisputed lightweight title and the BMF belt simultaneously. He's been vocal about wanting to achieve this before the year ends, and everything is falling into place to make that vision a reality. The motivation is obvious when you have this many potential paths to greatness all running through one fight. So here we are, staring down one of the most fascinating stylistic and psychological battles in recent memory, with two fighters who represent completely different approaches to achieving the same goal. On one side, you have Justin Gaethje, the calculated chaos specialist who spent years perfecting the art of controlled violence and devastating timing. He knows Paddy can hit hard and cause damage, but he's betting everything on his superior experience, better angles, and that legendary Gaethje intensity that has broken so many fighters over the years. Gaethje sees every exchange as an opportunity to land the fight-ending shot, and he's confident his improvements in grappling mean he can handle anything Paddy brings to the table. On the other side, Paddy Pimblett is walking in with the supreme confidence of someone who genuinely believes he's about to shock the entire world. He's not just talking about winning, he's talking about dismantling Gaethje before the championship rounds even begin, making a statement that announces his arrival among the division's elite in the most spectacular way possible. This fight represents the collision of old-school merit versus new-school marketing, emotional baggage versus fresh excitement, and calculated violence versus unpredictable aggression. When you factor in all the external drama with snubbed contenders, controversial title shots, and the broader debate about how championship opportunities should be earned, Gaethje versus Pimblett has evolved into something much bigger than just another fight. This is a defining moment that could reshape how we think about lightweight title contention and what it really takes to earn your shot at greatness. So here's my question for you. Drop it in the comments. Do you think Gaethje's experience and improved grappling will be enough to handle Paddy's unpredictable aggression? Or is this the perfect storm for a massive upset that changes everything we thought we knew about both fighters? If this breakdown helped you understand all the layers behind this incredible matchup, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell because this fight is just days away, and I'll be breaking down every single moment when it's over. I'll see you in the next one.